With a nickname like Rambo Santa, you probably have some big shoes to fill. And Sampo Ranta did take some steps towards filling them, but just how far did he make it this season? This season was Sampo Ranta's second year in the Avalanche organization and second year at the University of Minnesota, where he improved in almost every single asset of his game. It's just a question of how much did each area improve. For his nickname's sake, he was much more Rambo than Santa this year, doubling his goal count from his freshman season, but seeing a reduction in total assists. With that being said, at least in the first half of the season, we saw a much more consistent effort out of the player, particularly on the offensive end, consistently engaged and trying to create on the offensive side, instead of just taking advantage of opportunities given to him. In an interview, he even admitted himself that he was working significantly harder this year to get things done, and it clearly showed on the ice. He still has fantastic physical gifts in his size, skating, and shooting ability that would make any prospect gawk a bit. It's just about putting the whole game together. As the season progressed, his scoring picked up significantly. At its peak, he had 9 points in a 10-game span, including 5 goals. So during those scoring stretches, his offense looked great, but that would curtail at the end of the season. We'll get there. The big gains for me with Ranta are not actually his production. It's pretty much everywhere else. I already mentioned the consistency. More importantly, though, for me, was his defensive side. And this is going to sound weird because his defense was not great this year. There's a pretty solid argument that it wasn't even very good, but it was passable. And that's a significant improvement from what it was in his freshman year. He would still get lost at times in the defensive zone, but with the effort level up a little bit, he at least was trying to get something done. And the more he played in the defensive zone, the more it started to come together for him, to the point where he wasn't really a liability, at least in the defensive zone, which is going to get a player a lot more playing time. For someone like Ranta, a third-round draft pick that is likely going to have to go through the Avs minor league systems, it's an absolute must. Every opportunity to get on the ice, you need to take. And Ranta is starting to figure that out on the defensive side. The mental side probably still needs some work, but he can likely make up for that on the offensive side, where I think he has very good instincts, and with this new effort level, can probably create quite a bit, whether it be for himself or teammates. I think this fully came together at the World Juniors for him, as he did get to go with Team Finland, and while he only put up 2 assists in the tournament, he was a regular on offense, flashing almost every single game he was in, even if the finish wasn't there on an admittedly weak offensive Finnish team. But again, Team Finland showed trust in him and even played him on the PK. While that's not something I recommend for his future going forward, it's more experience for him. It's another opportunity that he managed. Not great, but he managed to belong on the ice, or at least not look out of place. As his already large frame continues to bulk up in a college system that gives players a lot of time to work out in the gym, using that physicality is also going to continue to be an advantage for him, and one that he needs to use more. That seemed to bolster his confidence as well, as when he returned from the WJCs, he continued to stay hot, putting up 6 points in his next 4 games, and everything was looking aces at that point. There were conversations of him even earning a contract immediately after this season and jumping on with the Avs, instead of returning for a 3rd year in college. But the end to his season would pump the brakes pretty quickly on that, as down the stretch of the season, Minnesota would struggle, winning just 3 games, and Ranta would put up just 2 points in their final 10 games. A player with the skill set that I just described Ranta as, with passable defense, is just not a player that can go that long with a bit of scoring downside. He has to be able to produce, period. Unfortunately, the shortening of the season, with everything going on, probably hurt Ranta a little bit as well. He'd even picked up a big goal to help Minnesota eliminate Notre Dame in their Big Ten playoff run, and then the season was over. So it didn't quite wrap up the season the way Ranta was hoping. Nonetheless, I still think he made positive progress in every single category on the ice, and at the end of the year, he did ultimately decide to go back to Minnesota for a third season. I don't know how much of a conversation there was on signing the kid, but I think that's the right decision either way. On the season, Sampo Ranta had 12 goals and 8 assists for 20 points in 35 NCAA games, and he also added 2 assists in 7 WJC games. Based on his season as a whole, I'm going to give him a C+ grade. And that might be a touch on the harsh side, but it's hard to exactly factor these things in. While I do think he improved his game in nearly every category, he didn't make a major jump in any of them. It's solid progress, and there seems to be a path here that he's working towards something, but that breakout still has to come, and his future with the Avalanche organization at the very least likely rides on his junior year at Minnesota. As the Avs continue to draft players with high skill ceilings but a lot to work on, development of these players is a big next step, and Ranta is going to be a new wave that is really going to test the Avalanche to see just how much they can get out of this player. A lot of that's going to fall on Ranta. A lot of that's going to fall on the Avs organization. If they can find a way to get an NHL player out of him, that's going to be big. That is the end of this player's season review. Thank you for watching. If you're watching this because you already know who I am on YouTube, if you're new here on the DNVR main channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button and check out all of our other awesome content. I am Rudo3, and it's good to get back behind the camera.
Avalanche time, come on, grab your friends. We're going to the playoffs again with Nate the dog and Gabe the big. The fun isn't over yet. It is Avalanche time.